Welcome to this explainer. If you've been feeling that deep, bone-weary exhaustion from today's hustle culture lately, well, I want you to know you are definitely not alone. I've been digging into this, and today we're exploring a truly fascinating academic framework that looks at our modern economic burnout through the lens of Eastern philosophy. Specifically, we're going to examine how the ancient concept of yin-yang harmony, as interpreted through Daesun thought, proposes a highly structured, cyclic system to actually recover our lost economic motivation. It's a completely different, honestly eye-opening way of looking at wealth, ethics, and the fundamental reasons why we even go to work in the first place.
Here is our roadmap for the explainer. First, we'll look at the casino capitalism problem. Second, Daesun's cyclic economic view. Third, reversing fire and water. And finally, data libertarianism in practice. I promise, this journey from modern macroeconomics into Eastern philosophy leads to some very practical solutions.
All right, Section 1, the casino capitalism problem, the loss of motivation.
So, have we lost our motivation in the era of casino capitalism? Well, the source texts make a really compelling argument that, yeah, we absolutely have. In fact, we've largely transitioned into an era of, actually scratch that, it's more like lotto capitalism. Just think about how many people feel that grinding away at a standard 9-to-5 simply doesn't guarantee a house or retirement or financial stability anymore. When hard work feels totally disconnected from the actual reward, human psychology undergoes a massive shift. People start leaving their fates up to chance, relying on the luck of the draw, high-risk speculation, or just waiting for a lottery ticket to hit, rather than actively participating in the economy. This dynamic completely strips away our drive to succeed and replaces ambition with just a profound sense of exhaustion.
How in the world did we end up here? According to the texts, it all comes down to the fundamental limits of the traditional libertarian view of wealth. This traditional view focuses relentlessly on expanding individual freedom and accumulating capital, but it carries a fatal flaw, a complete lack of cyclicalcy. It essentially ignores the interconnected, cyclic structure of society. Plus, it establishes a really dangerous value system of material priority. It prioritizes wealth, which the text calls the branch, over ethics, which is the root. Think of it like a giant tree. If you only care about the branches and you completely neglect watering the roots, well, the whole tree is eventually going to die. By separating individual wealth from the social cycle and putting material gain before moral foundation, the system structurally degenerates into that casino capitalism we just talked about. The motivation just vanishes because the foundation itself is so fundamentally out of balance.
Moving right along to Section 2, Daesun's cyclic economic view, a holistic alternative.
Okay, let's dive into this. Daesun's cyclic economic view applies 4 core concepts to solve these modern problems. To put these in plain English for us, first, Yinyang aims at the recovery of economic motivation, which is our main focus today. Second is Sunin Joha, which essentially focuses on regenerating our economic ethics through a social contract view, meaning we operate with a shared agreement of mutual respect. Third is Hawen Sungsing, which seeks to harmonize conflicting economic ideologies, finding a middle path rather than extreme polarization. And fourth is Dotong Yinyang, an approach to overcome resource depletion and the environmental crisis by aligning human industry with nature. While all 4 are deeply interconnected, today we are zooming in on that very first concept, Yinyang and how it directly targets that lost drive to work and create.
Yinyang translates to yin-yang harmony. Now, we are also used to seeing this symbol represent light and dark, or good and evil, right? But applying it to macroeconomics is such a fascinating mental shift. It visually represents the concept of complementary opposition. It's basically telling us that wealth and ethics aren't mutually exclusive enemies fighting for limited space in a capitalist system. No, they are 2 halves of a circulating whole. You literally cannot have sustainable wealth without a foundation of ethics, just as one side of this symbol flows seamlessly right into the other. They depend on one another to keep the momentum going.
Section 3, reversing fire and water, the core metaphor.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the brilliant elemental metaphor used to explain how we fix this structural imbalance. The text compares profit to fire and ethics to water. In traditional libertarianism, fire, profit, is placed above water, ethics. Just imagine a fire burning above a pool of water out in nature. The heat just escapes upward, the water remains totally cold, and absolutely nothing productive happens. It's a stagnant, unbalanced state that inevitably burns itself out. But this alternative economic view proposes a reversal. Place water, or ethics, above fire, or profit. Think about it.
When a pot of water is placed over a fire, the water warms, it boils, it creates steam, it powers turbines. It creates a sustainable engine of moving, circulating energy. By simply reversing the order of priority, putting ethics first and letting profit be the heat that drives it, the entire system begins to flow and generate power again.
To validate this idea historically, the framework draws on an ancient text called The Great Learning, which states, "Things have their root and branches, and affairs their end and beginning. To know what is first and what is last brings one near the way." This explicitly warns that treating what is important lightly and treating what is light with supreme importance is a literal recipe for failure. In our modern context, it means a business that sacrifices its core values, treats its employees poorly, or cuts corners just to hit this quarter's profit margins is fundamentally building backward. Sure, it might work for a quick minute, but eventually the branches snap. The root absolutely must come first.
So the crucial point is how this ancient idea translates into a modern economic theory called dyad libertarianism. Dyad means complementary opposition. It's an economic view that recovers our motivation not by hoarding resources, but by helping others prosper first, trusting the cycle so that we all eventually prosper. Now, I know exactly what you might be thinking. To a modern, skeptical mind raised in a cutthroat market, helping others prosper first sounds incredibly naive. No way that works, right? But this isn't about blind altruism. It's a highly strategic view of the economy. By prioritizing the success of your community, your network, or your clients, you are building an incredibly durable foundation of trust. A rising tide really does lift all boats. When the people around you have resources, they invest back into the system, and that cycle inevitably returns to benefit you.
Section 4. Day-to-day libertarianism in practice. Actionable takeaways. And this brilliantly illustrates that exact point. A quote from the foundational Yinyang text reads, "Our work is the practice of helping others prosper. It is enough to take only what remains after others have prospered." This pushes back entirely against the transactional tit-for-tat networking we're so used to today. You know, that idea of, I'll do you a favor only if you do me a favor first. Instead, this principle asserts that giving first is the essential spark that restores the healthy flow of economic circulation. By genuinely wanting others in your industry or community to succeed and actively ensuring that they do, you guarantee the health of the very system you rely on to succeed yourself.
Let's move to and see how this builds into real, actionable takeaways for our contemporary economic lives. First, by actively helping others prosper, we create social security effects through voluntary individual effort, building a safety net from the ground up rather than just waiting around for top-down intervention. Second, it encourages a shift from a strict, rigid meritocracy where only the absolute top performers survive to a need-based principle. In a corporate team context, this means applying your unique abilities where your colleagues actually need them to succeed, rather than just competing for the spotlight. Third, it demands establishing a worldview that firmly and unapologetically prioritizes ethics, the root, over material wealth, the branch. And fourth, it requires voluntary, active participation in the economic cycle, rather than sitting on the sidelines hoping to get lucky. This isn't some ideology that destroys individual freedom. Actually, it's an alternative model that beautifully harmonizes personal freedom with social justice, helping us escape that endless clash between the two.
So what does this all mean for you? According to Daesoon thought and the principle of yin-yang harmony, making others prosper first doesn't diminish your wealth. It circulates it, it multiplies it, and most importantly, it restores our deeply human motivation to work, create, and thrive together. It's a real game changer of a framework that challenges everything we assume about how a modern economy has to run. So tomorrow, when you open your laptop to start the daily grind, I want you to ask yourself a simple question. Are you just chasing the branches, or are you watering the root?